זה נכלל. Okay, it's working. So everyone. Part of the genius of the observance of the special days, the holidays in the Jewish calendar is the fact that there are mitzvot that are associated with it. It's because of the mitzvot that the days are remembered. There are many attempts to make days of commemoration during the year, even for great events. But somehow those events do not have the same resonancy simply because they do not have a mitzvah associated with it. So therefore, when Mordechai and Esther consecrated the days of Purim, and they said, "Vayoim oelu lo yavru mitoch haYehudim," that these days should be remembered forever amongst the Jewish people. And it says later that Nasim, they are done in every family, in every community, in every generation. So they did it through the establishment of mitzvot on the day of Purim. So we all know that there are 4 mitzvot that exist in the celebration of Purim. The first one is Mikra Megillah, to read the Megillah of Esther on the night of Purim, and then in the morning in Shacharit of the day of Purim. Every excuse me, every mitzvah carries with it minhagim as well, carries customs with it. So we know probably the most famous custom that exists with Mikra Megillah is the rash, the noise that's made when the name of Haman is recited. And this is discussed in halacha. Is it permitted? Is it considered a hefsek? Is it considered a violation of the decorum and the kedusha which exist in a Beit Knesset? And even those that, so to speak, found it difficult to defend the custom, agree that the custom should be maintained. And that, therefore, the main reason was that the children looked forward to it. It allowed the children a freedom that they did not have the rest of the year in the synagogue. And it also developed an area of creativity as to what kind of noise would be made. And we find that this custom goes back all the way back. In the Gaonim in Bavel recorded that they used to beat on pots and pans, like a drum. In the Middle Ages, in many Jewish communities, They blew musical instruments for the noise of Haman. The use of musical instruments ordinarily in the synagogue is not permitted, because that's one of the ideas that's a Zecher LaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, there was an orchestra every day, the Levim, and therefore we don't emulate it because we're not the Beis HaMikdash. But the instruments were allowed on Purim, and that was part of the noise that was made regarding Haman. The old Balei Halacha emphasize that the noise should be, so to speak, controlled so that one can hear all of the words of the Megillah. And then there was a warning about a custom that the Balei Kriya had to try and sneak in a Haman without the noise occurring. And it was a contest always between the children and the Baal Koreh, whether or not he would be able to do so. So in Mikra Megillah itself, there were customs, also a custom of what melody should be used for the trop of Megillah. And there were customs that when it came to the sad parts, the Megillah was read to the melody of Eicha. And then it was read to the joyous melodies. And there was always room for individual interpretation that the Baal Koreh was allowed in order to make the scene more dramatic, and that people should be taken by the Kriya. We don't have the problem here in Yerushalayim because Tainus Esther is tomorrow, but we don't read the Megillah till the day after tomorrow. But in the most of the Jewish world, the day of Purim follows hard immediately after Tainus Esther. So then there's a question about reading the Megillah while one is still fasting. Because that if one is still fasting, so that's a tsar, one has discomfort. So most of the Meforshim say that somehow it should be arranged that there should be some food available to be consumed before the Megillah, immediately after Maariv, when the Megillah will be read. There many places there is such a custom, many places there is not. But Mikra Megillah is one of the mitzvot of the Yom, to hear it twice, and it's a mitzvah on the women as well, because Afei Moyu Boso Anes, they also, the decree of Haman was to destroy them as well. And it's fitting that the children have such a large portion in the mitzvah, because they also were Afei Moyu Boso Anes, because he said, V'narvad Zakein Tavs V'noshim B'yom Echad, destroy them all. The other mitzvahs that are mentioned in the Megillah, Mishloach Manot Ish L'Re'eu. So that's the giving of items of food. So it's 2 items of food, because it says manot, ish l're'eyu, to at least one person. And the manot should be of food that can be eaten, doesn't have to be cooked anymore. It's ready-made. And the manot were to be used as part of the Suda. Today, Mishloach Manot has become an industry. And there are all sorts of different ways of fulfilling the mitzvah. I make no comment about it. Hanach le'em Yisrael, leave the Jewish people alone. And therefore, the question of Mishloach Manot has always been a delicate one. You see the Rambam in Hilchos Megillah regarding Purim, he already says that they should not overdo it with Mishloach Manot. And if they feel that they have to spend more money for Purim, they should spend it for Matanot Le'Evyonim and not for Mishloach Manot. But again, you have to leave the Jewish people alone. And there are all sorts of questions. Can you, somebody gives you Mishloach Manot, can you recycle it and give it to somebody else? Which often is the custom. And you have to make some change at least. There are all sorts of issues. But basically, the mitzvah is simple. It's 2 items of food or drink with that are immediately edible. That's given to one person. Matanot le'Evyonim. So we have a mitzvah of tzedakah every day of the year. We should always give to Evyonim. But on Purim, it becomes a special mitzvah, an additional mitzvah. Aside from the mitzvah of tzedakah, we also have the mitzvah of matanot le'Evyonim. So it's giving to Evyonim is plural. So the one has to give to at least 2 Evyonim. The definition of Evyonim is very broad. And therefore, the Gemara says that the halacha on Purim is kol haposhet yad nosnim lo. Someone that sticks out his hand to collect, we give it to him even though we may feel that he's not a legitimate Evyon. Evyon is a very strong word. It's more than an oni. Oni is somebody that's in our terms, below the poverty line. Evyon is someone that in many cases may really not have anything. But we are not bodek. We don't check on Purim the person's financial status, what kind of situation he or she really is, finds themselves in. And therefore, one of the ways to be Mekayim Matanot le'Evyonim, all of the mitzvahs of Purim except the Suda and Mikra Megillah can be done through a shliach. I can make you my messenger to give Mishloach Manot, and I can make you my messenger, my agent, to give Matanot le'Evyonim. So the custom has always been that there's a plate in shul that people put money into for Matanot le'Evyonim, and that is distributed by the Gabbai, by the Rav, whoever takes the plate. And in so doing, the people that put the money into it are Yotzei Matanot le'Evyonim, because the person that distributes it as their shliach, as their agent. Matanot le'Evyonim in our day is at least a half a shekel to each evyon, to two evyonim. Naturally, in our time, people give more, and the Rambam says basically that instead of making very elaborate and expensive mishloach manot, one should do things within reason, and then whatever money one has should be devoted to matanot levyonim. Because I'll say that it was such a important mitzvah and so widespread that when Rosh Chodesh Ador, the Avyanim already looked forward for it, for Purim. And therefore, it's a, and unfortunately, here, even in our very affluent country, Baruch Hashem, where we are not missing anything, there are people who are missing. There are people who don't have, or had all sorts of things. And so the customer owes to not only Matanot Levyanim, the institutions collect, schools, yeshivot, etc. So even though that's not the mitzvah, but it's the spirit of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is people, but the spirit of the mitzvah is anything that helps people. And therefore, there are drives that are put on for funds during this time, and there are institutions that send people out to collect on their behalf, all of which is under the guise of Matanot Levyanim. And finally, the mitzvah of Sudat Purim, of having a meal, a Yom Tov meal on Purim. According to most of the poskim, the meal should be have meat and wine. So there's most of the Mefarshim say that the poultry is also considered meat, whereas on Yom Tov it is not considered meat. On Yom Tov, meat is meat. And so here we in Yerushalayim, we're going to have Purim on Friday, Erev Shabbat. So Erev Shabbat, the Suda is held in the morning. It's not held late in the afternoon into Shabbat, though there are those that do have it late and they go straight into the Shabbat meal. Into Shabbat with it. It's mentioned in the Gemara, and there are customs like that. But most people will have the Suda in the morning. Well, the question is, do you have meat and wine in the morning? The poskim make really no allowance. But many people have asked me whether they're going to have a dairy Suda. So that is mentioned in the poskim, but that seems to be only an emergency situation. One should endeavor to have a Suda that has meat and wine in it. And then there's the custom that the Gemara brings, Chayav Adam with Sume Bepuria. A person should drink a lot of wine. He should be confused between Baruch Mordechai and Or Haman. So that's a lecture by itself. What a Chazal mean with that? Generally, we're not in favor of people becoming inebriated or drunk. And it many times leads to very unpleasant situations. And also on Purim is discussed that if people do damage, are they chayiv? What? I can't hear you. Rabbi Hananya ben Hakash, Omer, Osakot Baruch Hu, Zakas Yisrael, Fichach Hibbalaim Torah Mitzvos Shenemer, Adonai Chavei Zaman Tzidko Yagdil Yagdil.